been to the YetiZen before, have you?
First time.
It is the king of Yetis.
So there's some new
No, it's not the queen of Yetis. I heard that.
It means something else in San Francisco. Please don't go there. Welcome to YetiZen. I see some new first-timers, and I see a lot of old faces who've come in before. So thanks for coming out. To tell you real quick about YetiZen, so we are a games community hub where we do events like this one and free open co-working for anyone in the gaming industry during the day. Some of you I know actually work out of here during the day, so thanks for making it out for this event as well. Okay? We also run a games accelerator, so you're going to see some of our accelerator companies floating around because they're also pitching for this competition come Sunday. So with that, I would like to introduce Steve from Amtrust Financial, who's going to tell you a little bit about what you're going to be doing this weekend. Come on up, Steve.
That was scary.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm much more comfortable without it. It's a little bit weird to hear you introduce me as Amtrust Financial because it's a relatively new name for me.
Acquired.
Yeah, acquired.
For a lot of money.
I don't think so. My background, long before Amtrust Financial, is somewhat relevant and also explains why I need your guys' help here tonight. So I grew up in the grocery business, right? I grew up retail, selling people stuff, selling them Doritos, selling them things that I knew I could teach them. I could just put something somewhere and they just respond and they just buy it. They didn't need it, okay? And I transitioned, went into startups, went out to Seattle, worked for a company called Drugstore, worked for Amazon, argued with Bezos about shipping diapers and what the real long-term value of it was. That's really fun, maybe not. And the reason I'm at Amtrust, who is Amtrust and why am I there, right? Why does it matter to this group? Amtrust Financial, one of the largest insurance companies in North America, fastest growing. You'll never have heard of them because they're not about consumers. As our CEO says, look, if God has anything to do with it, I don't want to touch it. So, like, if your house can burn down because lightning hit it, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Because why? It's not very predictable, right? Acts of God in the insurance language are not predictable. So that's Amtrust. That's who they are. So why are they sponsoring this? And I think the real question is, why are they sponsoring me and my team back there, who hopefully you've all got a chance to meet or will get a chance to meet throughout the weekend? It's because, as that same CEO says, he's very blunt. He listens to people for hours at a time, and then he just says one sentence. And he says, so when he's buying us, he says, so let me understand what you do. You have a group of people, and you sit around, and you study problems, and you come up with things, and then you spend more time thinking about them. Well, God, Barry, I guess that's what you want to take my job now to. Yeah, that's what I do. He said, okay, I like that. I like that because you know what? We don't do any of that around here. We can't figure out how to build a damn new thing. So you know what we do? We go out and buy a company. So I like this, okay? So the CEO is behind this, okay? Then one of the concepts that we have been pursuing and we're here to talk to you tonight is financial literacy. And if I asked you to solve financial literacy over the next 3 days, it'd be the same as asking you to solve world peace over the next 3 days. Okay? Financial literacy can range from spectrum. So we deal with certain populations when it comes to financial literacy of unbanked and underbanked, right? And I can talk to you a little bit about that. But let's just talk about why this matters from, I think, my personal perspective. And Amtrust has invested in me and my team, right? And they believe in it. And so why are we here tonight? Why do I think it matters? I'll give you two kind of examples that I've run across. So in the world of unbanked and underbanked, classically defined as people who make households, not people, entire households, make less than $50,000 a year in income. And that's pretty generous, honestly. Okay? How do you end up in a situation like that? Okay? I can tell you, personally, I have been homeless. Through a series of unfortunate incidents after college, I ended up with no money, no food, standing out front of the Salvation Army, begging for a meal. And it is debilitating. What I could do, though, is I had a college education, and I had the ability to figure it out. I could engage my brain. I knew what the choices were that I could do. I knew what the options were. I knew what the things I had. Okay? If you don't have that ability, you're stuck. Okay? So unbanked and underbanked people making less than $50,000 a year in their household, they go to a bank and they try to open up a checking account. What do you think they get told? No. You cannot have a checking account. 20% of people who apply for checking accounts in this country get told no. Something as simple as a checking account. How do you engage in the world if you don't have a checking account? You go to check cashers. You go to people who are going to charge you $4.95, $14.95, $29.95. Every time you want to get your money that you just earned, mowing lawns, cleaning toilets, cleaning houses, someone's going to charge you to get your money. Okay? If they were empowered, if they knew what to do, if they knew and had the ability to say, I know that I shouldn't go here, I should do this, these are decisions that I can make, these are choices that I have, they wouldn't get, we were talking about what? The doom loop, right? It's a cycle, get into, over and over again, you can't get out. Okay? So that's one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum, no one worked for me. She grew up in a small farming community in Minnesota. Okay? Her mother was in education. Her mother taught home ec. Okay? Her mother taught home ec. Her dad was a farmer. Michelle was very smart, very bright, well educated, went to a very successful private college in Minnesota, and she was very passionate about working in community health care. And she, like a lot of people, just kind of went with things, went with what people told her, went with what everybody said. And by the time I met her, she had just graduated. She was a senior, graduated. And one night we were sitting out having beers in the driveway, and she said, you know, I'm $60,000 in debt. I'm $60,000 in debt. I said, how much are you going to make in the public health care community? She said, I think I might be able to get a job for about $45,000 a year. I said, and she was terrified. She was absolutely terrified because she didn't know how she was going to pull this all together. Because nobody had helped her in her formative years think about and helped train her around, do you want to sign this piece of paper? What are the potential consequences of signing this paper at this point in time in your life? So, Michelle took different paths, right? She found another gentleman, and we had a long chat one time, and she ended up marrying him versus going on to get her master's degree, because it was, she could figure out how to pay off her bills. So you guys, I can't tell you, I don't know how to solve that problem when you're 14 to 17 years old. I've told a lot of you here the following, right? Beth can walk you through this very, very concisely. But if you sit in front of a group of 14 to 17-year-olds across this country, doesn't matter the spectrum, doesn't matter the demographic, they feel the same thing emotionally. Okay? And this is why I'm asking you to focus specifically on 14 to 17-year-olds. Okay? It's a really great age. They're now old enough to understand things. They're old enough to intellectualize things. They don't like being talked down to. And yet, they see life coming at them like a freight train, is the best way I can describe the emotion, right? There are all these decisions coming at them, and they're mostly financial decisions. And they have no idea how to handle those decisions. And we look to Omar. Omar, wave your hand. Omar was introduced to me, and I said, Omar, how the hell would you approach this? He said, well, this is classic gaming. I said, well, he tried to explain it to me for 2 days, and I'm not sure I completely understood it. But it sounded really interesting and intriguing, which is this, right? The problem with, if I stood up in front of a classroom, and I told a bunch of you that I have 4 kids, I think I bullied my kids into sort of being financially literate, right? Because I just beat them into it, over 8 years. Like, if you want money from me, I need to know that your budget is in line. Okay? A lot of parents just don't do that. Okay? And there are incredible amounts of people who you're going to run into in this community, in this country, who are so passionate about this subject, financial literacy. And the way it gets approached is they stand up in front of the classroom, they do 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and they say, here are the key things that you need to know about being financially literate. And they run through interest, they run through credit, they run through loans, they run through it all. And they say, they sign little sheets and say, you're now got a certificate, you're financially literate, go get them. Right? What happens? Nothing. 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 Because it's not a habit yet. And that's why I think when I listened to Omar, I said, he's talking about the things I think that matter. How do you engage people, right? You engage them because it's fun, because they want to do it. Not because I'm standing up there telling you to do it, right? They want to do it, and then they do it over and over again, right? And then it becomes a habit. And they learn how the decisions they're making have implications to their lives. And we always say financial literacy is an outcome. It's an outcome of you, as an individual, having enough information, having enough experience making decisions, that the decisions you make are at least your decisions and not things that some bank told you to do or some other institution talked you into. So that's the challenge that we're laying forth, is focus on 14 to 17-year-olds, help them. Help them through your skills and your experience, because it's very unique, and we believe that your community holds a significant piece of the answer to financial literacy.
Go game developers!
Yeah! Is there any questions then?
One here.
All right.
So can you make the connection for me between an insurance company and these objectives that you just described? Because it almost sounds like a very interesting and worthwhile objective as you described, but I'm not sure where it connects to the business, your business.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. It's a question that comes up a lot. Is, okay, AmTrust Insurance Company out of New York, great. Why do you guys care? Why are you guys interested in this space? Very simple answer. The more people who make good, informed financial decisions, the better off we all are. It's that simple. It's not a self-serving. There's a self-serving model. I could walk you through the business model later, right? But this is not a charity. AmTrust is not in this to be a charity. I'll disclose that right up front. Banks and financial institutions are required by law and required by sometimes their own guilt. They throw money at this problem. Okay? There are no good solutions to throw it at right now, though. Is that a fair answer?
So it's basically risk mitigation. If people make smarter decisions, then they aren't going to potentially make decisions that lead to liabilities or
informed decisions are always better decisions, right? And I can give you a classic example is we work in the underbanked space. We provide a product. We're working very hard to provide continued solutions there. Is most of those people go completely uninsured. They just go commando into the world and they just go out there, right? And we want to provide them small micro insurance so that if somebody asks them, hey, do you have a surety bond? They know what a surety bond is, and they can pull out their phone and say, yep, I've got it because I'm part of this group. Did I answer your question clearly and honestly?
There's a question here.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Scott. Here's my question. I've been thinking about this since I read yesterday the goal here, and that's the problem of innumeracy. okay, and I've read that 94.5% of people in this nation are innumerate, which means that 5.5% of people would understand what I just said.
I don't want to disclose the side I'm on.
But basically what I'm talking about is not lacking the ability to do arithmetic, but it's to be so paralyzed and fearful in operating arithmetically that one cannot make quick decisions based on arithmetic, which seems to me to be fundamental to financial literacy. How can I walk these stores, figure out what I'm going to do, talk to the people around me, make budgets, do deals, get my surety bonds, whatever. If I'm fearful about math, if it comes down to numbers, I don't want to deal with them. How can I? So I'm not asking you a question, I'm really more making a statement. In these games, should that also be part of the goal to raise numeracy along with as a foundation for financial literacy?
I'm not smart enough to answer the question about should it be around their ability to work there. I would tell you this though, I have enough experience, and I think I'm smart enough to say the following, which is should we address the following, which is people have internal conflict every time they go to make a decision. Do they have the tools and the processes to make it through that decision? Whether it's just simply what's right and wrong, or they understand the numerical value of it, I leave that up to you guys. Okay? But it has to be addressed, because otherwise it ends up being solely an emotional decision. And solely emotional decisions are not going to get us to the end objective, where we're all better. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bud.
My name's Bud, game designer. So I understand, I really like what you guys are doing, by the way. And I understand where you're trying to go, but I don't have a clear picture of the framework.
Yep.
Because I don't understand, and these are important questions for us. Or do you want mobile games? Do you want console games? Do you want them to play every day? Give me some clear descriptions of the framework.
Omar, get up here.
So
I have now defined my boundary of
So two things, right? So Beth is going to talk a bit on the financial frameworks to be used, and then Omar can define the boundaries of like the platform and everything. Okay, do you want a mic?
No, I don't want to make. Okay, so as far as the financial framework, what we sort of put out just to trigger your idea a little bit on the Eventbrite website is to try to think about financial literacy in a way that's not about, lesson 1 credit score, lesson 2 credit card, lesson 3 XYZ
Budgeting.
interest, budgeting, et cetera, but more really getting to the fundamental idea of what financial literacy is as far as...
Can everyone hear her in the back?
About what financial literacy is.
Oh, I just said it to the microphone. I'm sorry, people can't hear you. So.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what financial literacy is, what we really want to drive at, as opposed to sort of a textbook approach to financial literacy, lesson by lesson by lesson, lesson 1, compounding interest, etc., so forth, so onward. To us, it's really about the core behavior around decision making. And so the frameworks that we put out on the Eventbrite website are sort of ideas or ways to trigger sort of creative thought about what that financial decision making might be. So we put out there sort of framework construct of opposing, or not necessarily opposing, but sort of a dichotomy of different examples. So time, money versus time, or money versus health, or money versus environment. Different bodies of ideas in which you have to think about your financial decision making against other factors. Just to sort of help you guys think about what it is that high school students really are thinking about when they're thinking about their finances. What are the other factors of framework?
So let me give you an example. I paid off my credit card, now have no money to spend on eating out next month, right? I'm going to get another credit card debt. That could be an example of a decision that comes up with, money versus get out of credit card debt. Okay.
Or do you want to talk
Is that clear before we move on to...
or more specific on the game side of it?
I could address that question. Or why don't you finish up some more questions and we'll
Okay,
come back.
yep.
I have a question on financial How much depth do you want us to go into as far as financial literacy? I mean, is it just personal finance, or do we go into like explaining like earnings, things like that? I mean, what level do you want us to go to?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean,
Repeat your question, please.
okay, so the question was how deep do you want to go into personal finance? So if you have a personal finance textbook, which I've actually looked at several of them when looking at the idea of personal finance and what is working and what isn't working in the space. I think a quote might help you from some of the teachers that we talked about. We worked with a lot of personal finance teachers, especially in the Twin Cities area, and they said, we have a lot of the curriculum, we have a lot of the content, we have the written Word documents there, textbooks and online that works students through it, things they can read, but we don't have our tools that can bring these concepts to life, to engage people. So you don't think about it as, okay, and now I'm making sure that this level teaches them compounding interest, really more about forcing people to reflect on their financial decisions so that they're recognizing when they're making decisions that it actually is a financial decision.
So this is more about teaching how I should behave based on the restrictions of the world, more than showing people how the world works, right?
I think the fundamental thing is about driving habits and behaviors. As Steve sort of said, our stake in the ground about financial literacy, I mean, it's less than it's textbooks. You need to know APR, you need to know all the words and terms, but really I think in a game what's most engaging is the behavior element, about driving the behavior or introducing them to the behavior that you want to drive. That's habit forming.
Think of it this way. The curriculum exists. Everybody knows what to do. Nobody knows how to do it.
Talked about a demographic between 14 and 17, but is there, from a player archetype perspective, are we looking at all socioeconomic situations, or are there concentrations of types of 14 and 17-year-olds that are most likely the ones that you want to reach more than others? And if so, can you describe those?
No, I think there's a certain power in introducing all of them, whether or not it's something familiar that someone's latching onto and saying, oh yeah, this is what my financial decision is like, or something completely different that forces them to think on what other financial decisions are. I think go broad as far as.
But so let me ask you in a different way. Who is going to be exposed to this? It may. Because whoever your audience is, in other words, if this is going to be introduced to an audience through a school, or through the YMCA, or through welfare programs, that's going to, whether you want to reach everyone, those are different audiences going to respond to different stimuli.
Our response to that would be that is absolutely correct, and each of those organizations may want to put their thumbprint on it. But I think what we'll walk away from the engagement with you and your community is, no, this is the proven way to engage people. Okay? The content and the message can be tailored, but not the approach. And what everybody tries to do is first tailor the approach and say, well, for my community it's this way, for my community it's that way. It's like, no, we're all humans. We all behave in a certain very predictable way. And I think you guys know how to mimic that behavior and elicit that behavior in a repetitive fashion.
I will say one thing to answer that question.
Yeah.
Keep in mind you have 4 judges on Sunday, right? 2 of them are actual game design guys at game studios, right? Some of them you might actually know. They will be taking a look at how clearly you define where you're going to go with that game. So if that means picking a particular demo, I believe that's fine. You guys don't have any particular consideration. There's no one demo that's better than the other.
No.
So go for what you think is going to speak most to both your peers of the best game designers out there, as well as to these folks based on what they're explaining right now for the pitch you're going to be doing Sunday. You have a question?
You just answered that.
You're welcome.
Good job, Sana.
All right, any other questions before we move on to the...
I got a quick one. Just how long are the pitches?
The pitches, we are going to probably reassess this based on the number of people who are pitching, but typically for these, we keep the pitches to about 5 minutes. What you will get a chance to talk to all of these folks through Saturday, and I'm going to describe that a little bit, so they'll have a good sense of your design before you're actually going out and pitching as well.
What's the format for pitching? It's going to be PowerPoint or something off the
So
projector?
anything that gives a good sense of the game that you've designed, whether that means a paper prototype for you or it means a PowerPoint prototype. There's no coding required, just the design side, but what gives people a sense of what's going to be like if they were actually going to play the game that you have just designed. And there's also a form that you must fill out, like a template for game design stuff. That's something they'll be looking at the same time.
I have one last question before we enter into the more games team. So it's not clear how this game is going to be presented to people. It means we also don't know how long are they supposed to play it, because that will change the design a lot. Like, are they supposed to be in like a 1 hour session playing this game and try to learn something from it? Or we just try to make a game that is so awesome that everybody plays and they can just play for
Great
months?
question. Let's have Omar answer that because he's going to be talking about things. He's the guy who, by the way, will be the producer on the winning game to actually get it live out there. So he probably has something.
I'm so glad we have Omar.
Well, I totally want the mic because I'm Filipino and I like mics. Who wants to go to karaoke? I know where my people at, right? For real.
There's actually a team pitching by Google Hangout from the Philippines.
From the Philippines?
They're going to join
Of course.
in.
Yeah, so my name's Omar. I am an independent developer too. As of recently, in April, I left my senior producer position at 2K on a game called NBA 2K. And before that, I was at a startup for a little while, doing social games. Before that, I was at Ubisoft as a senior producer. Did Ghost Recon, did a bunch of games there. I've been an engineer my whole life. Since I was a little kid, I actually started making my own games when I was 11 and just did it for fun, hacking away forever. Did my first pro game in actually Minnesota, where I know these guys from a long time ago. So when they had this come up, Mark Yanta over there called me up and asked if I could help out. And my first approach, to sort of answer your question, and we'll come back to your question, was immediately, I'm going to pitch a game. I got a great idea for a game. Of course I have a great idea for a game. Come on, I'm going to pitch you up a great idea. So as an example to maybe answer things more directly, my first thought is this, right? I had a game that I actually pitched. It's sort of similar when I was at Ubisoft, and it was called My Fat Friend Jim. Marketing loved me, right? Never going to see the light of day calling it My Fat Friend Jim. But the idea was, it was during the Dr. Mario days, if you remember that game. So like, how would you do something in that kind of line that taught a little bit of, healthy living and stuff. And it was this great idea. Instead of, no one wants to talk about how they're fat, right? Or broke for that matter. So like, I had this friend, Jim. And Jim starts off as an avatar that's kind of, hefty, right? And people are going to hate me at the end of this pitch, by the way. Right? And you want Jim to have a good life because of the effects of a healthy life, right? You want Jim to date. You want Jim to stop just reading comic books, which I kind of do a lot of, actually, if you can tell. And, go out once in a while. You want him to have, nice things, and you want him to do well. And it was all surrounding, like, health, right? Back then, the idea was going to be like this was like a Game Boy game, I guess. To get to like platform, attention, engagement, that kind of stuff. Mobile is how I'd be going on this. Mobile is actually what we've talked about the most. Playtime in a typical mobile game. My personal preference is somewhere around the 5-10 minute mark of mission-like based games, which is to say it doesn't have to be a mission, but like you should be able to progress in a predominant way in the game in like 5 minutes, right? So if you're on the BART with Muni for all my San Francisco friends here, you're waiting or something, you have a little bit of time, nuggets, right? And if you played, there's a lot of mobile games out there. There are a few good mobile games out there, in my opinion, and the ones that make me feel like I did something and not wasted my time, right? You don't want mobile players to feel like they wasted their time. Or gamers in general, right? You don't want to feel guilty about playing a game. You want to feel good about playing a game. So, I did something. I leveled up. Et cetera, et cetera. I'm personally a big. I'm not a judge, by the way. First off, so I can help you guys as much as you want. You can use me as much as you want here. I'm a big fan of what that first-time experience is, and being able to explain that very thoroughly and what you got out of it, because that's the reason that player's coming back. And most of the games I've worked on, all we talked about was what happens in the first whatever minutes of the game, right? And improving that game. And there should be an entire experience, essentially a walk through the predominant game loop of the game that you show in that game. So if any of those terms are confusing or whatever, I can explain that individually and whatnot. But basically, think of it as a player for a second. You pick up your phone. iTunes is like, what now? Like 1.5 million deep of apps and everything else. How much time are you going to give any one experience before you go, that was dumb. That My Fat Gym game was horrible. The heck was Omar thinking? So think of that, right, from the player. So it doesn't, I think it should be mobile. That's what I would do. And I think when you think about the classroom, which is the first experience point, or engagement with students that we've talked about, and there's actually schools behind these guys that they've been working with already. So the classroom is probably the first setting, most likely. The other side of it, and we actually talked about it on here in one of the Google Hangouts that I did. You should be able to leave the classroom and still play if you want to, right? So how would you do that? So it's probably still a mobile game. The only thing about it being a mobile game is, it establishes a sort of barrier to entry for those that have smartphones that can do it, obviously, right? Sort of a problem. That's a problem. Maybe you have a solution for it. I don't know. But if it was going to be a console game, it's going to be worse. So let's just try mobile for now. What else on your question before I get too far?
I don't know. It took so long to get to.
Yeah, I know. God. Did I tell you about my fat friend Jim? Gonna kill it.
I think the mobile part is really important. It helps narrow it down a bit. We covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
How will the game be promoted? Will it be promoted by the insurance company, or will it be...
So for the scope of what we're doing right now I'm talking like a producer. So for the scope that we're talking about right now, we're talking about making, or just, pitching the game, designing the game, and getting that, like becoming the winner, right? As far as how this thing ends up being produced post, the team that wins or the individual that wins, there's going to be a whole other activity about putting together a team, like it was, talked about, Beth mentioned. I'll have some part of that as a producer on it. Perhaps the winning group or the winning individual might, in addition, be included. That's not a guaranteed thing, but that's a possibility too. So how we're going to do that is TBD. It's not determined yet. So.
I think more refined my question is, will our target market be are they assigned to it, or are we going after a target market that we're going, that would want to find and discover this game?
Our players introduced to the game.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We answer that question very directly, which is, we would consider it a failure to have to go into a classroom and have kids use this because the teacher told them to. Right? The teacher may introduce it to them, but they do it because they want to, not because it's required. Is that, I think that answers the question.
Right, I think
It's
also
not forced distribution. That's a failure.
I think the question would be, what is the likely first point of introduction? You mentioned the classroom.
Yeah,
And/or is there is there existing audience or community that you already have that can be leveraged to be used to expose the game? Because if not, then you have to think into the design, not only the engagement and the progression, but also how do I get discovered, and that hasn't been.
Well, for the sake of the design of the game, I think the assumption you should make is that it will be. I mean, especially when for mobile is Droid or iOS, that it will be on a predominant a distribution platform like, the App Store or Google Play or Amazon Store in terms of where it gets accessed, whether they're first introduced in a classroom or other setting. So it won't be on an AmTrust, their own app store, I would imagine, right?
No, that's
So
robust.
Right.
That is robust.
So let me take a crack at this, right? So whenever you are working with a company that has as many funds and has as much of a strategic need to actually make this work for their business model, they are going to be spending on some kind of distribution. So there will be some initial distribution probably that's going to be pushed towards this. What that is, I don't think these guys have been planned it out yet. It depends on what wins, right? But they're going to be putting their own thinking around it. As far as it needs to be engaging, so that once they do put any kind of distribution behind it, more people actually do tell other friends about it. Hey, organically, there's more people coming in saying like, this is a great game. Hey, buddy, let's play this together. So do think about an engaging game. Don't worry about the distribution strategy. That's all on their plate afterwards.
Well, Sana, what I would say is there is a market. Remember what Beth said. She said she's talked to teachers. Okay, teachers are starved for a solution. That is one distribution channel. There are lots of other people, from junior achievement leaders to others, who are looking for things that they can put in front of these kids.
So whether it's going to classrooms, whether it's buying distribution, whatever it is, they're going to think this through. On your end, make the most engaging game possible for that audience that you pick.
Is there an expectation that the game makes money for your company, or can we give it away free to play, no in-app purchases? Is it purely humanitarian, or should we aim at the top grossing charts?
It's our job to monetize it.
Okay.
The game could work in either way. So literally, I could give it to a school. It's my job to monetize giving it to that school. So what I would do is go to a bank and say, for every kid in that school who engages and learns something, sponsor this.
So Steve, I think the question, to clarify this a bit, should they put some kind of virtual economy within the game where certain things can be bought? Because that's what he means by a freemium game.
No.
Make it completely free game.
You do not have to monetize it that way for us. No. If you find it engaging to do it, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but not as a means to monetize it to us.
So if you need to have a virtual currency within the game to get people to want to compete, that's fine, but you don't have to worry about the monetization sinks and sources.
Great question.
Okay. Anything else?
Did you get yours?
No, it was exactly that. When you start a game, I consult on people all the time who are making free-to-play games that shouldn't be making free-to-play games. And if you start thinking of a free-to-play game and you're trying to build a virtual economy inside of it,
Okay.
Let me make one advisement note just on that. So first and foremost, and this is what most great designers I've worked with have said, make it fun.
Yeah.
It should be fun. It's a game. It should be fun, and then it should be fun, and then it should be fun. Okay? That is the most important thing.
If you want it to be casual and everybody playing, and how do you want it to not be mindless? Because those are the games that are actually fun.
I'll join you later at the bar. Right? I mean, that's I'll be here all night. Seriously.
Hi. Just want to ask, to what extent do we have to consider the scope of production in our design?
It's a great question, actually. I'm going to say you don't, right? That is not. Well, so you make an epic saga that's got sequels built in and is a game that's 200 hours to make. You make Skyrim for us. I'll hire you after this. Right? So, in terms of the scope in that sense, don't make that the limiting factor. I would even challenge the judges to say that your scope should be reduced to X amount of features, I think that's a bad idea, especially in design. At least the designers I've worked with, I like to think of myself as a designer like third in the list of things that I'll say I am, because I've worked with such amazing designers. And if you start any of those designers with, you're in this box of scope already, they'll shank you, as was said to me earlier today, for having food in front of someone. But yeah, so don't do that.
No more questions?
One last
Okay.
So I could name like a lot of games that exist already that would be pretty good examples for just teaching people, I don't know, like Civilization or Sin City, or I don't know, there are like a ton of economic games.
Resource management's a basis in a lot of games. Yeah, I totally agree.
Why are those not valid? Or
You bring a great point, and I think they are valid, by the way. So I would argue that every MMO I played, every RPG I've ever played, like there's always money, and I have to buy stuff so that I can go kill the dragon. Right? So that's super important. I would say pitch a game that you think is honoring that if you think that's the best way to compete. So I think you're right. I would say that most of those games have never seen a classroom.
yeah,
Right, and-
those games don't appeal.
And maybe that's the that big moment of realization that, oh, we've already done this. It's just in the same way that a lot of books that I've read outside of school that should have been in school, Lord of the Rings, for God's sakes, right? Right? Let's be serious, right? That's an epic in a way that Socrates and everybody, Plato would have loved. So why is that not taught as part of a curriculum in high school? I have no idea.
It is.
Right, it is? Well, I'm older than you, and it wasn't I was.
All I know is my high school girlfriend made me read it. So there you go.
So what can you tell us about the actual judging criteria that you're going to be basing this off of?
So we put
Do
up-
you have percentage brackets of
It's
some
on
kind?
Eventbrite. The rubric is up
Yeah.
on.
And sorry it was
There's a giant bullet list, but that doesn't tell me.
No,
the
there's
percentage.
a new link on top now.
Yeah, sorry if that came out late, and after you look at it, if you still have questions,
He's around all
clarify.
weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
Danny?
So for a player that progresses and becomes a hero, in the context of what you're trying to instill and educate the player, what would make them a hero? Would it be they've reached financial success, they've never made a mistake, or they made mistakes and overcome them? I mean, what is it?
That is an incredibly great question. And this is our stake in the ground on this. We are not judging what success looks like. Right? It is up to each individual to determine for themselves. But if they made informed decisions, right? Even if they make mistakes, they knew they made a mistake, right? Learning is an iterative process. It's not a punishment process.
So as an example to that, when I originally thought I should just pitch a game and walk away with 15K or whatever, the idea that I had towards that was an adventure game, a classic adventure game, done in a certain way, where branching narrative, where you explore different things that happen for your actions. And one of the examples we brought up for whatever reason was Monkey Island, probably because I really love that game. So being able to explore and feeling like you're exploring in a safe environment, right? So that you can make mistakes and learn from them and then do something else.
All right. I think
Cool.
that's it. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Just some quick items on what's going to be happening. If you choose to, you can work out of here the entire night. But there's one rule to that. If after 10 p.m. you need to go out, you can't come back in until the morning, simply because there's a lot happening on the street. We can't manage security. There is club night tonight, so the club downstairs is going to be having clubbing hours, right? So 9 a.m. in the morning, we open back up. We have breaks for lunch. We won't be providing lunch, unfortunately. And then from 2 to 5 tomorrow, there's some incredible mentors who are going to be here to help you rig your games, right? Let me tell you who these people are. Jonathan Angel, he has been a financial advisor for a number of years for some incredibly wealthy people who do not know what to do with their money or not making good decisions with their money. He now works in startups. He is a mentor for the YetiZen Accelerator. Incredible guy. If you have any questions on how awesome he is, talk to the accelerator companies there. They met him earlier this week. So he's going to be looking at everything from more financial curriculum, right? Omar, you guys already know, he's going to be there as well. And Japheth Dillman, who is my co-founder, also the designer for Millionaire City, which was a top-grossing game on Facebook in 2010, is going to be there as your product mentor during that time frame as well. And then Will Peroni, who is an incredible CTO, engineer person who was involved with Funzio, that you all know, if you are in games, as a company that exited for a decent amount to Rig, he invented a lot of their back end. So he's going to be another person to help you from a production scoping standpoint, from a technical standpoint. He will be looking at your game designs, whatever state they are at that time, to help you, advise you on all of that. And then, am I missing anything else, Gordon? Mel? For housekeeping? Other than... So Mel, that guy there in the beard, he is your facilities guy. Please be nice to him. It is going to get incredibly stressful as you get closer to the time, but let's try to be respectful to each other. The folks that work here, our artwork, which is actually our landlord, so, and I don't have insurance for it, I think. So just be respectful to each other, the space, and that's all we ask, and also our staff, because they are going to be here all weekend with you guys. Getting an unknown call. Okay. And then Gordon is another person from the YetiZen team. All of you saw him because he was checking you in. Gordon and I are going to be here the rest of tonight, all of Sunday as well. And then JFit and Gordon and Mel will be there tomorrow. Any questions on logistics, housekeeping, what's going to be happening? No? All right. So what we're going to do now, because a lot of you came up to us and said, hey, we want to be able to pitch on a mic to attract more members to our team that we're going to work in. So the way we do this is it's lightning pitches for anyone who decides to pitch to attract team members, about 1 minute each. So think of the game concepts, etc., that you may have in mind that you want to build with someone else, and just come on here, line up. What's coming here? No lightning pitches. We'll begin work. I'll see you tomorrow. Are you in line?
All right, everybody. Aloha. My name is Bob Schmaltal. I'm really excited about this, game jam, only because I've been thinking of it, a couple years ago, and I started thinking about, what is one of the problems that they don't teach in school? And for me, it's, saving money. And so I started thinking, okay, well, how can you, what's that problem? Why don't they teach saving money in school? Well, it's because there's no immediate gratification to saving money. So I was thinking, okay, well, games give that immediate gratification. So what happens if you take a savings account and place a game on top of it? And so the way that the game will work is that the more money that the person saves, the more resources they have to build up their empire. And so they can start building up a really cool castle, building their farm, whatever. But the reverse is also true. So if you start taking money out, things will happen. Armies will attack your base, dragons will come and start destroying your land. So there's a bunch of consequence to take your money out. So you want to keep saving to keep your empire strong.
Awesome. So anyone interested in him, the idea, just walk up to him. All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anari. I'm the founder of Gamerholic. I don't think schools are the problem, to be quite honest with you. I think family is. There is a mentality that you don't do business with family, which I really, really don't understand. You can teach them everything you want in school, but if that conversation doesn't continue at home, then whatever they learn in school is not going to be there. That friend that they are influenced by who is not paying attention whatsoever is not going to have the interest of their friends either. So the number one thing that you have to do is take it back to the original plan. Make it a family environment where the conversation happens at the dinner table. If there's some kind of irresponsibility financially, you're going to get feedback from mom and dad, which is way worse than losing any kind of virtual currency in the game. So if we incentivize, make it real-world incentives for in-game action, I think you will accomplish your goals. That's what I want to put together.
All right. Anyone interested in him? His idea? Go find him. He's right over here.
All right, financial literacy is a huge problem, which is why I'm here to talk about building giant robots, okay? So we're going to build a game where students have to fulfill robots in their game and compete with each other. You have to make big purchases, which is the parts of the robots, or in small discretionary purchases, that is the cosmetics of the robots, that can make your robot look prettier, and there are also upkeeps of the robots, where you have to, as your robot become bigger, you have to buy a bigger storage room, and then as it gets better and more exotic parts, you have to pay more maintenance for it. So I'm trying to let students balance that within their game, and within the game I'll try to teach them about budgeting, having goals, and then teach them about saving on discretionary spending, also some basic economic concepts such as supply and demand and time value of money.
10 seconds.
And my name is Ben Yang, and I work for Electronic Arts right now, and I used to work in financial services, and I think I know a thing or two about games and finance, and on to me.
Everyone else already has teams, or is a team of one? Okay, that's completely fine. So you know all the folks in the Amtrust team, and Omar, and myself, and the YetiZen team. Come talk to us if you have any questions on anything. Otherwise, get to designing.